Should you go enlisted before becoming an officer? What's going on, guys? So today I want to talk about something that actually concerns something that I did myself, that I'm currently going through this process of doing, which is going from enlisted to officer. And it's also something that I get questions on every now and then, asking me, you know, they want to become an officer, should I enlist before becoming an officer? Because you might hear certain stories about officers who used to be enlisted might have more respect than other officers who never did or never enlisted into the Army. So you might hear those different stories. You might be asking yourself, should I enlist before becoming an officer? So today I want to talk about that. First off, there are two main ways that United States Army gets its officers. Number one is ROTC. ROTC is basically where you go to some college or university, you go to that school, you take ROTC classes, you do those ROTC classes, you take extra labs and stuff like that, and you also do some training as well over the summer. And once you graduate, you will commission as a second lieutenant in the United States Army, Army Reserves, Army National Guard. The other way that the military gets their officers is through OCS. This is the other main way. It's not the only way, but it's the other main way, and that's OCS. OCS is basically a 12-week course that honestly condenses a lot of what you learn in ROTC. So in those 4 years of ROTC, when you're only going to be taking, you know, those 1 or 2 classes a week, that's all going to be condensed down into 12 weeks of basically field training, class training. You're going to be learning this whole process of becoming an officer, and through that training you will get graded, you will get assessed, you will take, you know, tests, and you'll get graded on who you are, your personality, your leadership traits, your knowledge, your skills. And then once you finish OCS and once you finish ROTC, once all that has been collected together, you will then be given a military branch of service that you're going to go into, where it is based off of your preferences, but you don't actually get to pick it. Then you actually join into the military as a second lieutenant in the Army or the Army Reserves or the National Guard. So that's kind of how you're going to become an officer. But the question here is, should I become enlisted before becoming an officer? Now, I want to talk about some of the pros to actually being enlisted before being an officer. And in my opinion, this is a really big pro. This is a really positive that I've been told a lot. Like, people are like, I'm really glad that people have told me that they're really glad that I was enlisted before becoming an officer, because number one, it just helps you understand the military just a little bit better. You kind of understand the full scheme of things. You know what it's like to be a lower enlisted person. Now, whenever you are an officer, you went through ROTC, and you actually never enlisted into the military. So you were never one of those lower pay grades, E1, 2, 3, 4. You were never like that. And that's kind of like the bottom of the totem pole for the military. And when you're an officer and you're making decisions, your decisions are going to directly affect the lowest of the enlisted people, the people fresh out of basic training and AIT. Your decisions are going to directly affect those people. And when you used to be enlisted, when you have that little bit of experience, it doesn't really matter how much experience it is, but when you have that little bit of experience of knowing the, you know, second and third order effects of your decisions that you make as an officer, it kind of will help you make your decisions a little bit more sound. It'll kind of help you realize, okay, I'm gonna make this decision, I'm gonna do this is gonna be our plan, and I kind of know how this is going to affect the lowest of the echelons of leadership. The other thing that is a positive of being enlisted before becoming an officer is, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, you respect the ranks a little bit more. Something that I have noticed from my personal experience is cadets, people who are about to be officers, younger lieutenants that I have met do not, in my opinion, respect the ranks, really have a full understanding of what it feels like to be that lower enlisted person, where everybody else is a higher rank than you. That amount of respect that those NCOs, that those officers deserve, I feel like some of that is lost, you know, somewhere in the training of going from ROTC to being an officer. I think some of it might have to do with, you know, you're just being instructed by E8s and E9s, and you're being instructed by captains and majors and lieutenant colonels and stuff like that, and you're associated with these people all the time. And when you go through basic training, E6s are like, they're really top dog. Like, they're really important. They're really big. They're experienced in the military. And you look at these E6s, like, they're really great leaders and you respect them. You know, E7s is just like, dang, that's Sergeant First Class. He's the platoon sergeant of our platoon. And then you got your company first sergeant, your company commander. Your company commander is more than likely just a captain. So he's probably been in the military for somewhere less than 8 years or so. And when you're going through basic training, you learn to respect these ranks a lot. You learn to look at these ranks and respect it. You know that they earned that respect, and you kind of, you know, give them that respect that they have earned. And if you haven't experienced that being an officer, in my opinion, I think it's kind of a negative. For me, being enlisted, going from a PFC to a specialist to now a cadet, and now I'm about to be an officer come this May, I feel like I understand that rank, the amount of respect that each rank holds, because I remember being a private. I remember being a PFC and looking at a second lieutenant, a first lieutenant, a captain, a major, and just being like, dang, like, they could just tell me whatever the heck they want me to do and I'm gonna do it, because that's kind of the way it works in the military. You know, looking at an E6 or an E7, just really respecting that. And when I commission as a second lieutenant, I will be a higher rank than those E6 staff sergeants, those sergeant first classes and stuff, but I understand that they have earned that rank. They have spent time in the military and they deserve that, and so I should respect them. And that's something that personally I feel like you really get and you understand when you enlist before becoming an officer. You just don't get that same feeling when you just go straight to being an officer. That's personally my opinion. You know, there are officers that will respect blah blah blah, but that's just my opinion. I think if you enlist into the military first and then transition to be an officer, you will have a little bit higher level of respect for all the ranks and a little bit more of an understanding of the rank structure. So whenever you're going out through your military career as an officer, you're gonna come across people who are going to look at you like that officer doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know whatever. And then they might find out that you were enlisted before. Well, that's gonna change they're gonna change their point of view on you a lot. It's gonna change a lot. They're gonna look at you and be like, oh, that guy, he was a sergeant before, he was, you know, a specialist before, he understands, he's been to basic training. That officer, you know, maybe has a deployment under his belt as an enlisted soldier. They're gonna look at them a little bit different as an officer, even though they might still be a first lieutenant. They may not be, you know, a major or a super high rank, but they're gonna look at them a little bit different. That, and to me, honestly, it's just a fact. Kind of across the board, people, whenever you look at an officer, in my opinion, will kind of see them in a little bit higher regard that they were enlisted before becoming an officer. So that is really what I want to say for all this stuff. But the real question here is, should you actually be enlisted before becoming an officer? I've named off a few things that are really big positives to becoming to going enlisted before becoming an officer. There's a really big positives to that. But is it something that you should really do? Is it something that, you know, if you want to be an officer, do you really have to go enlisted? Like, basic training sucks. You know, if it's not something you want to do, if you don't want to be enlisted, why should you have to do it? And my answer to that is you don't. Now, I know I said that people will look at you a little bit differently. You yourself will understand the ranks, the structure, the respect a little bit more. You're gonna understand what it feels like to be a private in the United States Army. You're gonna understand that stuff if you were enlisted before, but I don't think that stuff is necessarily required. I mean, obviously it's not required, but I don't think it's gonna make you like a bad officer. It's gonna make you somebody like you just don't understand, or you're lost, or people just won't respect you unless you're enlisted. That's definitely not the case, and the vast majority of officers were not enlisted before. So I want you to keep that in mind. So if you are asking me, should I enlist for the sole purpose of having that enlisted experience before being an officer, I would say not to do it. But if you want to enlist, like if you really want to enlist, and if you like it, then you want to go and try and be an officer, then that's all fine and dandy. If you want to join the military and you realize that being an NCO is not for you, and then you want to switch over to an officer, that is awesome. But I do not think that you should join the military with the sole purpose of using that enlistment just to kind of hype you up a little bit as you go on to being an officer. Now, if you want to go through ROTC and be a cadet and you want to get that experience and stuff to be an officer, then being enlisted will help you, but it's not going to be, you know, night and day huge difference. Now, other cadets at my unit and stuff, they might look at me a little bit differently because I've actually been in the military for longer than them, or even though it's just the reserves, but I've been to basic training and AIT and stuff like that, and a lot of stuff that you do, you as a cadet, you kind of learn in basic training, so that's something that's kind of interesting. So I had a little bit of a one-up on people, but still, it's not going to be life-changing. It's not going to be, you know, huge, big difference, but it's just something to consider. So that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button. That would be awesome. If you want to stick around for some more of my videos in the future, hit that subscribe button. As always, leave your comments down in the comment section down below. If you have any questions, hit me up on Instagram and Twitter. Links are in the description. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys later.